And that's a great segue, I think, maybe to getting started with today's meeting. I'm going to give a little introduction. My name is Olivia, and I created Hydra. I started creating Hydra, I think 2 years ago, although actually I was like, was it 2 years ago or 3 years ago? I just was I can't remember at the second, but um, it's almost a happy birthday, Hydra. So maybe the next meetup could be a birthday celebration. Welcome everyone to the second meetup that we're having. We had one meetup about a month and a half ago. And it was really exciting for me to kind of virtually meet people who I've kind of like exchanged text with for some time, or brand new people who I hadn't met before. And so just to go through a little of the sort of agenda for today and plan for the meetup. So I think most of you have probably seen the meetup page. I don't know if, Naoto, would you want to share the screen into the meetup page?
Yes.
If that's not complicated. So the plan for today, we decided to have a theme for this meetup of remote collaboration, and it's a very loose theme, but we're going to have 3 talks, basically. One talk from Maria Witek of using Hydra with LiveLab for live streamed audio-visual performances. A talk from Naoto about using Hydra and some other tools in contemporary dance, and a presentation from munshkr about collaborative coding with Flok and Hydra. And each of those presentations will be pretty short, from 5 to 10 minutes, and then we'll have 5 minutes of questions after the presentations. And I think just because there's so many people, I think the easiest will be to actually write your questions in the chat as the talks are happening. And so then at the end, we can kind of go through each person. If it's too much to write out your question, you could also just kind of put a smiley face, and then we'll know that you want to talk or something like that. And then after the presentations, we'll have a show and tell and Skillshare introduction. This is similar to what we did last time. And this is basically part of the idea of the meetup, is to get to know each other and kind of the types of projects everyone is working on. And it's really hard when there's so many people to actually get to see a little bit from everyone. So because of that, we made this meetup website where if you add a link to the spreadsheet, then your link shows up and your name shows up on the page. And so the idea with this is to have a recording of what happened in the meetup and sort of an easy way to share links with each other without having to sign up for a corporate platform or something like this. And the whole meetup is kind of an ongoing experiment into what is community online and how do the tools we make fit in with creating these types of communities and getting to know each other. And so I think we will, like last time, we'll send a feedback form at the end and kind of reevaluate what's working or what's not working. But just going back to that, we will use this spreadsheet to go through everyone who's added their name and have a minute for each person to either just introduce yourself and say hi, or to share one thing while we're also sharing the screen share into the chat. And it seems maybe a little bit tedious to hear from everyone, but I thought it was actually really amazing last time to hear from everyone. And we got a lot of feedback that people really liked that, because I think sometimes even when you ask people who wants to share something, people end up sort of self-selecting in a way, and it's really nice to hear from everyone. So each person will have a minute to share something. And you're welcome to use less than a minute or just say hi. But feel free to update the links in the spreadsheet if you want to. Any questions about that? I know that was a little roundabout. Okay, great. And then at the end, Naoto, do you want to just explain a little bit what the jam at the end will be?
Yes, so let me stop this. Yeah, so we have, okay, I didn't prepare, obviously. I've been in a festival called Node Forum, and I've been organizing series of meetups, discussions, exhibitions, performances in this 1 week within this Mozilla hubs that it's called Greenhouse Nexus that the festival created. And because it's kind of a loose partnership with them, I want to invite you to go to visit that hubs after this meetup, or after this meetup, and then we can do some kind of screen sharing and do a live coding jam with Hydra. So it's like a spontaneous live coding session. We'll give you links and how to do it. Just give a brief introduction after the show and tell.
Great. Thank you, Naoto. And yeah, I think part of with this, the short talks we have are looking at sort of different ways of collaborating remotely and different tools that are available. And so this is a chance to, there's a bunch of people online who are kind of interested in trying out these things. So the idea at the end is that there's a chance to try out these things. And also I'll do a short, if people have Hydra questions, we could ask them in the chat. Any more questions about the agenda before we start? Okay.
If you have any question, like just like about the whole event, feel free to write in the chat. If there's anything, I hope everyone's respecting each other and we have a nice event. But if there's anything questionable or like something you feel wrong, you can feel free to write to me or Olivia or Flor. We are the organizers. So in the chat, you can find us to send a direct message. But please don't send direct message to someone you don't know, even if someone has like really interesting projects. It's better to write in a public chat to everyone so that everyone can see those messages.
And so with that, we could start the presentations. The theme for this is remote collaboration. And so I think it's a great time to be thinking about that collaboration, both real time and also kind of asynchronously. And so our first speaker will be Maria Witek.
Hi, everyone. I'm not sure if anyone mentioned this, but I think you are recording now, right? So that's maybe something we should share with everyone. So my name is Maria Witek. I'm a music scientist and academic, usually working with music. But since lockdown, I've been doing a couple of sort of remote collaborations and live streams with other people, both sort of with my partner from home. And just yesterday, I did a live stream with a friend and DJ in Australia, in Melbourne, and where she was playing music and DJing, and I was using Hydra to make visuals. My presentation today is a very practical one, which is just about how we did this collaboration, how we used Hydra, and how we connected through our different videos. And this we did with a tool called LiveLab. And LiveLab is a collaboration software for artists which was developed for the Arts and Technology Network Culture Hub, which Olivia is the main developer of, but also with contributions from Tongwu and Jesse Rick. And it's a browser-based media router for remote and multi-location performances, rehearsals, and other collaborative events. It's open source and free to use, and it was a really great tool for doing this. So what I'm going to do now is actually just share my screen and then show you, basically demonstrate how I use LiveLab in combination with Hydra, talk about some of the things that worked and what didn't work, and focusing specifically on how to mitigate issues with resolution and compression, which can be an issue with remote and long distance collaborations. And again, hopefully won't take 10 minutes, as I imagine there's going to be other people here at the meetup who have used this combination of tools before. And I'm certainly not an expert in this. So if anyone has any other tips or tricks up their sleeve, it would be great to hear from other people. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. Right, can you see my screen? Great. So I'll just go through kind of what I did and then indicate along the way where there are other options that you might want to consider. And Olivia is going to be pretending to be Tammy Sounds, DJ from Melbourne, Australia. And so the first thing is that if you want to use your own camera in Hydra to combine with other camera sources and alongside using LiveLab, remember to open and activate your camera in Hydra first. Because for some reason, if you open up LiveLab first and then open Hydra and try to activate your camera, it won't work. Not sure why, but that's just something to be aware of. So I've already done this. I've activated my camera in Hydra. And then you go to livelab.app, which is the website for LiveLab, which is also browser-based, as I mentioned. And there are different sources that you can select here. You can use different camera sources. So I only have my FaceTime camera. I'm not connected to a webcam or anything. But I have different audio sources. Now I'm going to use no audio source and no video source because you want to limit the amount of sources that you're using in LiveLab, because if you're using many sources at once, it can kind of overload the system, and that will have an effect on your resolution and compression. So I'm just going to do this, and I've put in my username here and press start, although I'm not actually going to do that yet because I already have LiveLab open. So you just pretend that I started that session, and then what you basically do to share it is you copy the link and then send it to your collaborator. And as Olivia just told me, you can actually change the name of this room to specify a specific room, like my room or my screen or something, to make it a personal link, and then continue to use that same link again. So I sent the link to Olivia. Olivia has now chosen her video source. And if she wanted to, so say she was making music, and if I wanted to hear that, she would have to choose her audio source from her, whatever, her sound card or her laptop. In our case, yesterday when I did the stream with Tammy, that seemed to overload the system to such an extent that it affected the resolution of the video. So we decided to not use audio through LiveLab, and instead I listened to her DJing through the stream itself. So she, after we set everything up, she streamed to Twitch. And so I was listening and monitoring the stream rather than listening to her output through LiveLab. But if you have a better resolution, you could do that. You can choose to stream your audio through LiveLab as well. One thing to say about audio as well is that obviously Hydra has this audio responsiveness function that you can use. That tends to be a bit tricky with this kind of collaboration because of the delay, although LiveLab is really good and has less delay and better resolution than many other tools, I think. But nonetheless, I think possibly, again, this isn't my expertise, but possibly because of the difference in frames per second and beats per second, right? If that doesn't correspond in a kind of obvious way, the audio responsiveness can kind of seem out of sync at times. So in this case, or yesterday, we didn't use any audio responsiveness. Instead, what we did is we used like Olivia's video as input to Hydra. And in order to do that, you can click on this little icon at the top, at the bottom here. And I should say as well is that there are some really good tutorials about LiveLab on the Culture Hub website, which I can link to later, or someone can link to in the chat now, maybe. Yeah, so I think there's one on audio and one on video, which are really useful. So yeah, so what I'll do just now is just, I'll click on this icon down here, which pops out Olivia into a separate window, which hopefully you can see. And then just minimize this screen here. And now I can use this window as a source for in Hydra. So just put this right here and put that down there. So now if I go back to Hydra, so I've already initiated my camera. You can do the init screen function and select that window, which has Olivia in it. And now then you can add those two sources in fun ways. Hope people can see that. And yeah, I mean, there are ways to sort of make things look a bit sharper. You can use contrast. I like to use contrast. That was maybe a little bit much. Let's see. Yeah. No, if you wanted to know if Olivia and I had a child, but I know that's not possible, but if that was possible, to put our faces together, I don't know. Anyway, so yeah, so this was sort of the basis for what I did in the stream. One tip that I have to make things look a bit smoother is to use blend. So blending the output with itself makes things look a little bit smoother. So you can already see that things are starting to look a bit smoother. And you can do that several times. So now things are maybe a little bit too much. Okay, anyway, so now there are different ways in which you can share this output. So last night or yesterday when I did the stream with Tammy in Australia, she was doing the streaming, right? Because she had the audio. So there are different ways in which you can share the Hydra back to Olivia, essentially. So one way is to share your screen in LiveLab. So there's a way, this icon here, you can click that and then share your screen. So now we have that in Hydra, in LiveLab, sorry. And then if Olivia was streaming, she could select that as this video source in OBS, which is one of the streaming softwares that people tend to use. And then also select her audio as the audio output. For some reason, that didn't work very well for us yesterday. I think possibly because things were going back and forth in LiveLab, although again, I'm not an expert and don't really know the terminology for these things. But that seemed to create more delay and resolution issues. So instead, what we did was that Tammy yesterday then connected to Hydra using these functions, which are, I'm just kind of typing them in here, but I'm sure some people know them. So you can set the name of your stream or your Hydra output to something like just using munshkr. And now if you see at the top here, my screen has been, or this tab has been named munshkr. So now I'll just sort of explain what Tammy did and what Olivia would have done. If she was to do this, then she could use this function, which is in a stream, oops, not screen. And then if she executed that, that would give her access and set my Hydra output as this S0 object, basically. And so then she could set that as the OBS output. And for us, that seemed to work better. It just made the resolution that much better. The problem with this scenario is that it means that the person who receives the Hydra output and is streaming it won't actually see the code because they're only seeing the visuals and not the code. And so, you know, that's maybe something to consider for some people, depending on what kind of performance you want to do. And it really depends. If you have a really good internet connection, then I think doing the screen sharing could be better. But for us, that seemed to be what worked. It wasn't amazing, but it was okay. How am I doing for time?
It's actually already 14 minutes.
Okay.
So if you can wrap up and
yeah, I'll stop.
Yeah, and maybe
I'll just stop there.
For how do we do the Q&A? If there's question, maybe you can ask, or we can do it together with mine because it will be somewhat related.
Sure.
Actually, quite related.
Yeah, sorry about that. I had no idea it would take so long.
No problem.
Classic problem, but I should know this. I give presentations all the time, but oh well. Thank you.
No worries at all.
Thank you so
also,
much.
Thank you, Maria. And I know you have a recording from that presentation, and maybe if you want to share the link.
Yeah.
And a comment from Avine in that a lot of people were wondering about making visuals without showing the code, and so this might be a way to do that, which is a good point. And Naoto's talk will touch on a lot of similar techniques, I think, and but a little bit more from a dance perspective. So maybe we'll do your talk and then do a Q&A with both of you. And thank you so much, Maria. That was really great.
Okay, so I guess I will take over. Hello, I'm Naoto. I know some of you today will know, I hope I will know every one of you. I'm an artist from Japan. I'm based in Germany, Cologne. At the moment, I'm in Frankfurt for the festival Node Forum, which I briefly talked about before, but basically I'm really interested in doing networked performances or like networked things in general. And at the Node Forum, because it's happening in Frankfurt, but it's hybrid festival. So I'm doing kind of unconference events in the Mozilla hubs to add a little bit informal things, not just like conference that you watch on YouTube, but something more participatory or creating something together. And in that sense, I've been doing I was doing this session called choreographic coding online, which I started, I think it was in March, or maybe I think it was in April. It's okay, I have to do a screen share. And basically the idea was every week I open Jitsi room that I will be there, and yeah, it's just like this. So I'm there and just let people to come. They are interested in coding or dance choreography, and we just talk about what we can do. And actually this became more like a performative or practice as we continued for like a few weeks. Like this was the very first session, and like 3 of us, actually, like there are like 5, but actually 2 of them are myself with different filters. And we were just talking about things, but then we started to kind of jam with, for example, here, we were doing some kind of test with OBS, which looks really simple after watching what Maria is doing, but this is kind of like where we started. And just a bit of background, I studied engineering, so I do coding, and but I'm also like really interested in contemporary dance. Well, not only interested, but I'm kind of involved a lot in this community. Okay, so, and one of the kind of the participant of this session, Jorge, he's actually here, but will probably join the meetup later. He kind of came to this meetup like almost like every week, and we kind of started to think about doing something like together, not just as like just about talking, but like actually set like once a week we have like 1 hour to try things on LiveLab, which we started in Jitsi, but it turned out that LiveLab is so much easier because, as you saw in the what Maria just said, it's really easy to make the new window from someone's video and use switcher, which I don't know if we have time to talk about all these features in LiveLab, but basically it's like so optimized for network feedback performances. So we started to use this, and at first this choreographic coding online was like an open session for everyone, but we kind of started like with Jorge and I started this like what we call best practice in contemporary dance, more like a not closed session, but like we just keep it between us and we upload videos afterwards. So this is like part of the session that I was doing Hydra with overlaying Jorge's Hydra stream, and I was doing some sound with tidal cycles. So and then I was moving at the same time, which it's really fun. Like we have 1 hour, so it really like slowly builds up. At first, like I really start like I don't I think there are like a few ways to do live coding, but I really like to build up code, not like kind of preset. Like written code, but I really like to explore what I can do within that time. So it's like a really slow process, but at the end, like we kind of find like interesting beat and interesting feedback, and or if it's even not interesting, what we can do is actually to dance. So that's the best part. So whatever we end up with, I think the last 10 minutes or 5 minutes of this 1 hour is just dancing crazy, as you can see in the video. So yeah, that's kind of the thing that I've been doing. It's really kind of overview, and there's no, I didn't say anything hands-on, but if you're interested in some of the techniques in Hydra, you can always go back to my Hydra book, which probably someone can share it in the chat, or maybe already everyone has the link. But yeah, I really like interested in this kind of really doing hardcore coding part, and improvising and just breaking everything and see what happens in the session. So yeah, thanks so much. And actually, Jorge and I will have this discussion session tomorrow at Mozilla Hubs, which I don't know if I'll just like share a link of all the events I've been doing in this Node forum. And what did I want to say? Yeah, so there you can find discussion that we're going to do on Monday and Tuesday. We have this like what we call best practice session that you just watched on YouTube. We'll do like improvised thing on Tuesday, and on Wednesday we'll do another discussion. So please find the information in the link I just shared in the chat. Thank you so much.
Yay, thank you, Naoto. I think it was great to have those two talks together, especially because they're both using similar technologies, but Naoto's uses a lot more sort of process-oriented explorations of this kind of thing versus like a defined performance. So I'm gonna go read the questions, starting from, I think the first question from Elena was about cameras. I'm scrolling back right now. Where'd we go? Okay. Can we activate multiple cameras at the same time? Did you mean in Hydra or in LiveLab?
Whatever allows us to have different perspective when we have a dancer or a choreography in front of the camera. I was trying to think if it would be possible to have different points, cameras who can track the movement, and for now in Hydra, then LiveLab is an extra layer.
In Hydra, you can, when you do a knit cam, you can use a number to specify which camera, but I don't know, Naoto or Maria, do you want to add to that, if whether you've tried that?
I've never tried using more than one camera, no. But yeah, I imagine that you, as you say, just use different sources.
Yeah,
I suppose if you wanted to do like the similar thing that I was doing, you would need to have them come in different Hydra.
I guess Flor
maybe not.
Say something about it.
Sorry, I was writing in the chat because I didn't want to interrupt. I try in Hydra, like with 3 cameras, and then I use LiveLab. But yeah, in Hydra you can use, I have only 3 USB ports, but it depends how many ports you have on your computer. But also you have only 4 output sources. So maybe you can use 4 cameras.
Another question is, have you ever used LiveLab in tandem with online jamming softwares like Jacktrip or Jam Kazam? Does that introduce issues? Before LiveLab was public, this huge symphony in Korea, between Korea and New York, used LiveLab for video and Jacktrip for audio. And I'll share the YouTube to that once I find it. And then I'll switch over. I don't know if Maria or anyone else wants to comment on Jacktrip.
I haven't used Jacktrip, but the thing with audio responsiveness, if that was what the question was about, is like as soon as you, I don't know if people might have experiences with this with streaming Hydra, so as soon as your visuals get quite busy, then the frames per second start to be longer or greater, I don't know. So that obviously then the audio responsiveness, it becomes out of sync with the audio. So I don't know how that would work with Jacktrip. Yeah, I haven't tried it.
Just to add, like, it's kind of irrelevant in a way, but when I do a session with Jorge, sometimes we just don't share the audio and we just do it on our own and we record it individually. So we have like two different like kind of universe in a way after the performance or practice. And yeah, then it's easier to make it synchronized because it's just in the local computer.
Yeah, sometimes it's just nice to have like some serendipity happen between this rather than, because even in gigs, sometimes you just don't use MIDI, just have two things, try to sync them up and then leave them be.
I think it's a really interesting time to question like what is live versus not live, especially when everything is delayed anyways when it's sent across the internet. And then a lot of times live streams aren't being changed in real time necessarily. And so some things can be really interesting to record ahead of time, and then other things when they really depend on collaboration or some sort of feedback from the audience, maybe not. I think we have time for one more question. Feel free to just say it out loud if you would like, unless I missed some. Okay, from Elena, did anyone, do you want to ask your question, Elena?
Yeah, I'm trying to, I would like to map the visuals on a large screen that basically need more than one projector. And we're planning to blend with Resolume or another software, and then I have no idea how to integrate or connect Hydra to that, because Resolume needs the video to be integrated. So I was wondering if anyone did this and what software they used, mapping software, or if they have other tips.
I feel like this is going to be like a big topic, so maybe we can keep it until the end, because we have another like a Q&A, like a general Q&A at the end. But I think it's really interesting too, because like we're kind of going, we talked about like internet, like online collaboration, but also like physical space is something that is interesting to explore. So yeah, let's keep that. But feel free to, like, if you have any ideas, just write in the chat. Well, I hope that's okay.
Yeah, I think along with that, thinking about physical space in the context of online performances is really interesting. And I agree with that we should keep that question till the general Q&A. But I just wanted to mention that link I included that Edith just added, that was a symphony between Korea and New York. I think the way they used projection was really interesting because they had live performers with a frame around them next to projected performers, and so it kind of put the projection on the same level as the people who were standing in physical space. And with that, I think we can move on to our last short presentation, which will be by munshkr, and it will be about collaborative coding, a collaborative code editor called Flok.
Okay, awesome. Hi, everyone. Let me share my screen. Okay, so I lost my. Okay, so yeah, I prepare some slides, some boring slides. I will go with I will pass them quickly and show you Flok. My name is Damian or munshkr. I live in Buenos Aires, Argentina, and I'm mostly live coder using tidal cycles. And I'm part of Click, which is Live Coders Collective here in Argentina. Well, I'm going to talk about Flok, which is a collaborative editor for special oriented for live coding, music and visuals. It's browser based. Mostly peer-to-peer. I say mostly because it tries as much as possible to use WebRTC, which is to communicate directly to each user without a server in the middle. But if it fails to do that, it fallbacks to WebSockets. And it's free software. It's open source. You can use it. You can clone it, modify it, do whatever you want. It allows you to use many, besides Hydra, you can use it for other live coding languages like tidal cycles, Foxtrot, Super Collider, and really any other tool or language that has an interpreter. And well, what why I wrote this? We started playing in our local meetups collaboratively with Hydra, mostly using Tidal Bridge and Troop. Bridge was also a local development from Click, and Troop is another collaborative editor that Ryan, the one that wrote Foxtrot, made. We started at the same time. We started talking with other people around the world and trying to play collaboratively, remotely. This was the one. At that time, we started using Estuary, which is another collaborative editor, but it's runs on the browser. And we also installed Troop on a server in a local hack lab. This is. I'll show you. I'll give you a link of the talk so you can watch the videos later. The thing we started noticing a few things that, for example, if someone had a different version of the server and of Troop, the server version, or the client were different, the server crashed a lot of times, frequently. All the things that happened was that starting a Troop server was difficult because of issues related to the router that the person had, or if she or he didn't know how to configure the router, they couldn't start the server. Other people couldn't connect to that server. In the case of Estuary, for example, you couldn't have, at that time at least, you couldn't set up custom samples or scene devs in the case of music languages. And also we wanted to use Hydra at the same time. So that's the main motivation. And well, how does it work? You go to you go to one of the public servers. It's a URL, and you start a new session or join an existing one. Each session has one or more editors or slots, and each slot has has a target. For example, there could be one slot for Hydra, another for Tidal, or there could be 3 Hydra slots and 2 Tidal, for example, and 1 Flok slot. And when you evaluate code in that slot, Flok sends that code to everyone. In particular, if the target is Hydra, it will update the Hydra canvas that it's in this session. And for the other targets, you have to run another program in your computer that will listen to that specific target. For example, if you want to run Tidal, you start this client for Tidal, listening to that target. And whenever someone writes Tidal code in a Tidal target, in a Tidal slot, it will evaluate that code in Tidal. So, and well, the limitations are that, of course, users must have all the language and tools installed and have the same setup, the same samples index configuration. There's no server that streams audio, for example, as in Estuary. Actually, Estuary produces the sound on each browser, so there's no streaming either. And in Hydra, for example, I know that screencasting works, but only works from your side. Now, having watched now the talks of Maria and Naoto, I know that you could use LiveLab to stream each other's cams and screens. So that wouldn't be a limitation anymore. So I want to show you. So you go to one of the public servers, for example, this one is the main one. You enter the number of slots and the target of each one separated by commas. For example, I want to do 3 Hydra slots and 1 for Tidal. You write something like this, and you enter your nickname. And in the case of Tidal, this is the command that you would have to run in a terminal for running Tidal. This is an example. You'd have to change this if you wanted to use, for example, Flok slot. And when you click join, you are presented with this. You have these 4 slots. Yeah, if you write something and evaluate with control enter or command enter, you will see the canvas behind. So, and this, of course, well, I could share this in the chat maybe, and someone can join. Let's see. I'm not sure where is my. Chat. So. So what about, well, using collaboratively? As I said before, there's only one canvas, but you could do, you could use, I know you can use the render command, for example, which shows you the 4 default outputs Hydra has. So you could, for example, each slot you could write something on each specific output. I think the first one is 0, the one on the right on the upper side is the 02, right? So I could take, for example, the first output, and then the noise. Oh, sorry. And yeah, it's not it's very similar to what I think it's very similar to Pixel Jam. I think that if I remember correctly, the difference was that in Pixel Jam you had 3 outputs and the 3 slots separated, and the connection between the outputs was already made, so it was easier to maybe to set up. But you could do something similar, I think, here. Well, I think it's cool that you can, besides having Hydra, you could have other languages like Tidal and Super Collider at the same time. So yeah, I'm not sure if I'm okay with the time, but that's all from me.
Great, thank you so much, Damien. We had a few questions in the comments. Does each instance of Hydra and Flok have 4 buffers each, or do they share outputs?
No, it's not. There's only one instance of Hydra, so everyone shares everything. Actually, that happens also with Tidal, Foxdot. Everything is shared. So if someone writes to the main output, it will overwrite whatever other person wrote to the main output. So yeah, the same thing happens with Tidal. If you hash, for example, if you write hash and evaluate, it will hash everything for everyone. So yeah, it's all shared.
You need to unmute yourself, Olivia.
Oh, thank you. We had another question, which is, where is this running, on one person's computer or on a remote server?
Yeah, this is running on a remote server. You could run it locally yourself too. Yeah, you can install. There's 2 ways to install it. You can clone the repository and follow instructions. I will leave the link in there. But it's on GitHub. You can install it like this. It's written in JavaScript, so it uses npm, similar to Hydra. You just install this package, Flok Web. You can run it like this. But you can use it. You can use the public servers. The web server is very light, so there's no, because the only thing that it communicates, it's text. So it's there's no streaming, so it's very light. And actually, there's 2. There's also on Heroku, which is uploaded automatically whenever I push the repository. So yeah, you can use both, any of the servers.
Thank you so much, Damien. I'm really excited about this, and I'm excited to play around with it more because I haven't yet. What if maybe we should give one last round of applause to all 3 of the speakers? It always feels like in Zoom so quiet, so maybe we could unmute ourselves for a second, do a round of applause.
Yay!
Yeah.
Oh.
Hola.